Hello friends, good morning and hope you're all doing good. So welcome to our next video on this series of videos on how to drive in Belgium. So today I will be covering speed on motorway and expressways. Alright. Okay, so what are the topics for today? So we will talk about the speed. It's focused on speed on motorways and expressways. We will define what these motorways and expressways are. We will see what the speed should be here, what are the prohibitions, and we will also look at some exam tips. Okay, so we will look at some exam questions as well, likely exam questions. Okay, so expressway, how do you identify an expressway? You see this traffic sign. Let me put on the pointer. So this traffic sign shows an expressway. In Dutch they call it autoweg. That's the beginning of an expressway and that's the end of an expressway. So I have a screenshot here where it's showing the beginning of an expressway. So from here starts the expressway. What is the maximum speed on an expressway? That depends if it is within or outside a built-up area. So if it is within a built-up area, it will be 50 kilometers per hour. And outside the built-up area, yeah, that depends. They will indicate what the speed should be. For example, on this road, if you can focus a little bit, this road is showing 90 kilometers per hour. Very important thing to remember is there is no minimum speed on expressway or express road. So if you in the exam, if they ask a question about the minimum speed, there is no minimum speed. So you can literally, theoretically you can drive even at 50, 40 or 30, but driving slow is also an offense. Okay, so but the point to remember is there's no minimum speed here. So an expressway can be within a built-up area or outside a built-up area. There's no minimum speed. The maximum speed of 50 kilometers if it is within built-up area, and the maximum speed of 70 kilometers per hour outside built-up area in Flanders and Brussels, maximum of 90 outside built-up area in Wallonia. This is the case when they have not indicated the speeds. All right. For example, you are entering an expressway and there is no board that is telling you what the speed should be. In that case, you have to remember in which area you are driving. If it is Brussels and Flanders, then you will have to drive maximum of 70. If it is in Wallonia, then it is 90 kilometers per hour. All right. Okay, so here's an exam tip. You are riding on this road within built-up area. What should your maximum speed be? So you are riding. This is a built-up area, and you can see that you are also entering an expressway. So what should be your maximum speed? The answer is yes, you have guessed it right. It's 50 kilometers per hour. We just explained that in the previous slide. Okay, then coming back to motorway. So a motorway will be indicated by these road signs. Okay, these are usually those international roads, while expressway can be even between two cities. Motorways are usually international roads. All right, so this indicates, and from here starts the motorway. Exactly after this board is the motorway, and before this board is not a motorway. So it makes a lot of difference. You have to remember this very clearly, that after this traffic sign is motorway and before this traffic sign is not a motorway. So there are a lot of things that are prohibited after this traffic sign and that are allowed before the traffic sign. Okay, so you have to, when entering a motorway, you have to always accelerate on this entry lane. So as you see, the motorway starts here and then you are driving here, and this is the entry lane, and if you go further you will merge to the motorway, but you should start accelerating on this motorway. Alright, the maximum speed on a motorway in normal conditions, yeah, remember that, because you have to always adapt your speed depending on road conditions. Okay, in normal conditions, the maximum speed is 120 kilometers per hour, and the minimum speed, very important, there is a minimum speed on motorway, and that is 70 kilometers per hour. All right, okay, here's an exam tip. You want to enter the motorway, where will you accelerate? So this picture is very, if you get this picture in the exam, you might get confused. You are seeing a truck, and then should I accelerate here on this road or here? No, the answer is you should always accelerate on the entry lane and only then enter the motorway. The reason is the traffic already here is at very high speed. It could be at 100, 120 even. And if you don't accelerate here, if you just try to enter the motorway at whatever 50 kilometers or 60 kilometers, that's very dangerous. So always accelerate on the entry lane and then enter the motorway. So the answer is, of course, it will be on the entry lane. So they will give you other options to confuse, on the rightmost lane of the motorway, on the leftmost lane, on the middle lane. No, you can all ignore that. So you should always accelerate on the entry lane, okay, before entering a motorway. Another exam tip: how fast are you allowed to ride on this entry lane to motorway? That's a tricky question. So on this entry lane, how fast are you allowed? So what do you think? Should it be 70, 90, 120? Remember, we are already on the motorway. The motorway has already started. It is given by that board. You are already on the motorway, and you should always remember the speed on the motorway is 120 kilometers per hour. Okay, so even on the entry lane, your maximum speed should be your maximum speed can be 120 kilometers per hour. It doesn't matter if you're on this lane or this lane. Yeah. All right, so from the moment you see the motorway sign, you can ride at a maximum speed of 120 kilometers per hour, but it's a different thing that you have to adapt your speed to the conditions. But okay, all right, so next, a breakdown lane, also called as an emergency lane or hard shoulder. So what is this? This is the lane that is used by vehicles which have a breakdown. The vehicle cannot drive, or the fuel is exhausted, etc., etc. So that's when they have to use the breakdown lane. This is the breakdown lane. You see this solid line, white line, continuous solid white line, and next to this solid white line is the breakdown lane. Okay, and when there is a breakdown, the driver should and the passengers should always wait behind this rail. That's the safety. So I put a picture here. There is a breakdown car. When there is a breakdown, you have to use a warning triangle, and that you have to put 100 meters before your car. Okay, so the distance between your car and the warning triangle should be at the 100 meters, and this triangle should be placed in a place where it's clearly visible. So it should already be visible from a distance of 50 meters. Okay, and very mandatory thing, driver should wear a reflective jacket and wait behind the rails. So one reflective jacket is mandatory in the car. All right, the passengers, if it's safe if the passengers also wear, but it's not mandatory. It's mandatory only for the driver. All right. Okay, so dynamic road signs. These road signs that you see on the top of a motorway or expressway, these are dynamic, which means that they keep changing. At some time they will indicate if a lane is open or closed. At other times they will indicate the speed, etc., etc. So these keep changing. That's why it's called dynamic road signs. And these road signs, these dynamic boards, the whatever sign or whatever indication is shown on the board applies only to that lane. It's very, very important to note. So for example, this board applies, whatever is being shown here applies only to this lane, and whatever is being shown applies to this lane. As you can see, it says the traffic is not allowed, this lane cannot be used, so that applies to this lane. Sometimes it says, okay, on this lane you can drive at 90, on the other lane you can drive at 70, so that applies to those specific lanes. Okay, so what are these dynamic road signs? These are digital traffic signs, and they are used to adapt the traffic to the traffic situation, and it applies only for those specific lanes. It can sometimes also indicate the maximum speed on that lane, and also at other times it can indicate which lanes to use and which lanes not to use. All right. Okay, here's an exam tip. You're riding on a motorway. After the dynamic boards, it's very, very important to remember these things, after and before, okay, because it makes a lot of difference to what you answer. So after these dynamic boards, your options are: you're allowed to ride maximum of 50 kilometers per hour, you're advised to ride. Look here, again, you're allowed, you're advised. You know, these things you have to remember, so it's again to make you tricky. Yeah, personally I would feel I don't like this way of options. Should be straightforward, testing a person, but okay. You are advised to ride a maximum of 50 kilometers per hour. You must ride minimum of 50 kilometers per hour. What do you think? Yes, so the option 3 is obviously wrong. These boards don't say the minimum speed, but they give you the maximum speed that you are allowed to ride. So option 3 is ruled out. Now, are you allowed? Are you advised? So it is not advised. What is mean by advised? Advised is, okay, I'm advising you, it's up to you, you follow it or you don't. So if it's an advice, you ignore, you are allowed to ignore the sign, right? So that's not the case. So the correct answer is option 1. You are allowed to ride, and you are not allowed to ride more than 50. Yeah, you can take it the other way also. So that's what the answer is. You are allowed to ride a maximum of 50 kilometers per hour. Why? Because these dynamic boards say that you are only allowed to ride 50 kilometers per hour on all these 3 lanes. Okay. Okay, next exam tip. You are riding on a motorway. After this board, again, when I say after, before, pay attention to that in the exam also. It makes a lot of difference. So after this board, you're allowed to ride with a maximum speed of how many kilometers on the middle lane? Okay, so when you see this board, what do you think? Is it 70? Is it 90? Is it 120? Well, if this bottom plate was not there, the answer would have been 90. 70 is ruled out because it's not the middle lane. 70 is the right lane, so 1 is wrong, obviously. 2, okay, yeah, if this plate was not there indicating 1500 meters or 1.5 kilometers, then your answer would have been 90 kilometers per hour. But this plate 1500 meters will say that this restriction applies after 1500 meters or 1.5 kilometers. Okay, so the restriction does not apply here, does not apply before the board, does not apply after the board, but at a distance of 1500 meters or 1.5 kilometers. And that is the reason why the option 2 is also not correct. Then you are left with 120 kilometers per hour, which is okay on a motorway to ride. Okay, so yeah, it's very important that you pay attention to these small things, uh, which will, yeah, help you gain more points. Next, an exit lane. We saw the entry lane in the beginning of this training. Now we see the exit lane. So an exit lane is a lane that you use to get out of a motorway. You exit the motorway and then you go on a national road or a ring road, whatever. So this exit lane, yeah, it's on the right, and it is, the marking is those short broken lines. So you see the motorway has broken lines, but you can clearly see the exit lanes has short broken lines. And sometimes they will indicate the speed, and that, and at the bottom they will also indicate a plate. And this plate indicates this speed limit applies only on the exit lane. So if you see this combination, then for you to remember is that the speed limitation is only on the exit lane and it is not on the motorway. So on the motorway you continue to ride with whatever speed you have been riding. The maximum can be 120, but this restriction only and only applies on the exit lane. And the other important thing to remember is when you are taking the exit lane, of course you have to slow down, because it's not a motorway. It's not a motorway. Going further, the motorway will end for sure, and then the speed may be 50 or 70, whatever, or 90. So you have to already start slowing down. But where do you slow down, or where do you apply brakes? You have to apply brakes only on the exit lane. Okay, you should never apply brakes on the motorway and then go into the exit lane. Yeah, the reason is because the traffic behind you, that becomes a little nervous when you apply brake. They will think that, oh, there might be an accident, there might be some incident. So you don't want to panic them, and that is the reason why you should always apply brakes on the exit lane and not on the motorway. You should not unnecessarily apply brakes on the motorway. Alright, so you can of course slow down on the motorway. You can, yeah, stop accelerating. That will already slow down the vehicle, but you should always apply brake on the exit lane. Very important to remember. Okay, here's an exam tip. You want to take the exit. When will you apply brakes? Will you apply brakes now, or after switching on your indicators, or after you have moved to the exit lane? Of course, we have seen this. You have to apply brakes after you have moved to the exit lane. Okay. The next exam tip, you want to continue riding on the motorway. What should your maximum speed on the motorway be? Yeah, just explained 2 slides before. You want to keep continuing. This limitation applies only on the exit lane and not on the motorway. So on the motorway you continue riding 120 kilometers per hour. Okay. Rush hour lane. On a motorway, there or on this express roads, there can be a rush hour lane, which is an extra lane on motorways, of course, which is used during high traffic conditions. Okay, these are separated from the other lanes with long broken lines. So the picture is not very clear, but you can see these lines are this is a long broken line. Okay, and this is a rush hour lane, and the dynamic board here is indicating that you are allowed to use this rush hour lane. So you are allowed to use the rush hour lane only when the dynamic sign indicates that you are allowed to do that. Otherwise it would have put a red cross here that you cannot drive on this lane. Okay. So exam tip: when are you allowed to drive on a rush hour lane? Your options are between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. Option B, if there is traffic. Option C, if the dynamic board indicates you can drive there. So between 6 a.m. we all know between 6 and 11 there is a lot of traffic, people going to office, people going to schools, etc., etc. So people might think, oh, okay, so that's what the right thing is because there's a lot of traffic. And then the option 2, if there is traffic, no, who defines what a traffic is? Yeah, so that's also not the right thing. So your correct answer should be only if the dynamic board indicates you can drive there. Even if there is a lot of traffic, you should not use the exit lane unless and until you see the green indicator on the dynamic board indicating that you are allowed to use the exit lane. All right. Yeah, so that's the answer. Okay, now we have looked at the speed. What are the prohibitions on the express and the motorway? Now, for the obvious reasons, it's very logic. These roads are high speed roads. The speed can go up to 120 kilometers per hour. So for obvious and logical reasons, you cannot allow pedestrians there. You cannot allow bicycles, cars, agriculture vehicles, towing of fare vehicles. Why? Because they are vulnerable. If they are pedestrians, bicycles, they are vulnerable. And if for agriculture vehicles and towing of fare and all these things, they go very slow, so they hinder the traffic. Yeah, so that's why they are not allowed on these roads. No parking, no waiting. There can be parking and waiting on an express road, but only if it is indicated. Otherwise, there is no parking and no waiting on these roads. No U-turn, no driving in. Yeah, these are again obvious things. On these roads, high speed roads, you cannot do, there are no U-turns, of course. There are no places for you to take U-turns. Okay, so if you want to take a U-turn, you have to exit the road, take the normal other roads and then come back to the motorway. So no U-turn on the road, no driving in wrong direction, that's always prohibited, and no reversing. That's very, very dangerous. No competitions, no racing on these roads. Okay. All right. Overspeeding on these roads. So there are two conditions. One is you have a driver's license B, and then the other condition is you have a provisional license or temporary license or a learner's license. If you overspeed with the learner's license, yeah, the possibility is you have to retake theory and practical exam. As simple as that. But if you have a driver's license, and then you have to look at two conditions. Are you driving at more than 30 kilometers per hour than the allowed speed? So let's say if the allowed speed at that normal conditions is 120 kilometers per hour. So if you are driving at 150 kilometers per hour, the police you will have to surrender your license immediately to the police. When they catch you, you have to give away your license immediately. If you are riding more than 40 kilometers than the allowed speed, so if the speed is 120 and you are riding at 160 kilometers per hour, you have to appear before a judge. You may lose your license for at least 8 days to 5 years. So again, a very important point to remember: what is your speed? Is it more than 30? Is it more than 40? And then the consequences. All right. Okay. I think that was it for speed on motorway and expressway. So if you have any question, please post those on the comment and hit the like button and try to share this video with your friends, family, people who want to do the exams. So till next time, have a nice weekend. Bye bye.